The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to Hoop Ball NBA DFS today for Sunday, December 1st. I am Andrew Hansen, and I'm happy to be joined today by Myles Hartley. And Myles, we are recording on Saturday night for the Sunday slate. It's our first show since Thanksgiving, so glad to be back here. And I start off by asking about your Thanksgiving, but I know you're in Canada, so you didn't celebrate it this week, did you?
No, yeah, we celebrated that last month on October 14th. That's when our Thanksgiving always lands in October. So a little bit different than you guys there, because are you guys always in November?
Yep, always in November. So it's that I think it's the fourth Thursday, and but I guess we do, as you were telling me here before we got started, we do share the Friday schedule after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. You have that up in Canada.
Yes, we do. But yeah, like I was saying, I think it's only really become a thing over the last 5 years.
And then the other thing you're telling me, which is interesting, something I haven't heard about, is the Christmas light up. So tell us about that. We need to educate everybody here on some Canadian culture.
Oh, you guys don't do that where, like there's some big tree in the city and they just light it all up?
I've just never heard it called that.
Oh, what do you guys call that?
I don't know if there's a word for it, but you're talking about a big tree that's in the city,
yeah,
and everybody goes and you light it up for the first time for the winter.
Yeah, it's just called the Christmas light up, and there's a few throughout every city. There's usually one or two of them.
Okay.
It's either happening on the downtown main street. They'll decorate all the trees along the street and the light poles, and then they plug it all in and it lights up the entire street. But yeah, that's just something that we always do up here.
Well, here's what I think we should do. I think we should have our DFS light up, where we light up the scoreboards with the players that we pick for this Sunday slate. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'd like to see those flames on the DraftKings there. All lit up.
All right. Well, before we get started, let's go over some Twitter identification. Follow all the news at Hoop Ball Fantasy. You can find me at Language Olympic. You can find Myles at MYLES6565. So please give us a follow. Reach out with any questions or comments about the show. You, of course, can also find the coach at JOESARVADI and Mr. Apotria at MIKEAPOTRIA. That is the crew, and we are supported by the one and only Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. Check them out on Twitter at HI Kona Coffee. Check out their website at hawaiianisles.com and place your order on Amazon. That's what I've been doing. So we thank them for being our title sponsor. And they are behind us on this 9-game Sunday slate, which on DraftKings is broken down into a 4-game slate, another 4-game slate, and then a showdown slate at 10:30. So that's what we're going to do here. Myles, we're going to break it up and start with the first 4 games at 3, 3:30, 3:30, and 4. And the first tip-off is going to be Miami at Brooklyn, 3 o'clock Eastern. Why don't you tell us what you think about the Miami side?
Yeah, on the Miami side, I'm looking at Bam Adebayo at 7,300. It's center going against the Nets, so it's always a good choice. And Bam's been playing really well this year. And I like him a lot more, I think, than I do Jimmy Butler and Dinwiddie at around the same price. And the whole reason I say that is that I think that Dinwiddie could get into some trouble with if Jimmy Butler's guarding him. What about you? What do you got on the Brooklyn side there?
Yeah, well, for me, it is all about Dinwiddie. And 7s are wild for him. He's 7.7, and he's had 7 straight fantasy games of between 36 and 65 fantasy points. So he's really been taking advantage of Kyrie Irving's absence, and Kyrie will be out again on this slate. But but coming back soon. So maybe one more shot here for Dinwiddie to put up big numbers. He's been very, very reliable. You're right. If Butler spends a lot of time on him, I am a little bit more concerned. But it shouldn't be too hard to fit him into the lineup here because we've got some news coming in the third game. So I'll probably have him in the majority of my lineups. As for the rest of Brooklyn, I don't have that much interest really. You could look at DeAndre Jordan, 4.7. He got closer to a timeshare last time out with 23 minutes. And so you're going to save $1,500 on him compared to Jared Allen. How about you? Do you like anybody for Brooklyn besides Dinwiddie potentially?
I was thinking looking at Garrett Temple because he's produced over the last couple games here, but I mean at 4,900, he is an all right play just because like if he does hit that 35, 33 DK point mark again, he definitely is hitting value. But like you said, there is definitely some more value opening up later in these couple of games that we're going to go over that I think I like more than that.
Yeah, and we've also got higher totals coming up. Games 3 and 4, the Timberwolves game and the Lakers game are the ones that I'm going to look to stack. And this one's got lower total of 216. And, just in general with Miami, they already had 10 guys last game who played between 16 and 28 minutes. And now you've got Derrick Jones Jr. probable. So you add him to the mix, and it's just a little bit of a mess for me because, Winslow's back in the mix. So I'm not going to try and pick, at a Nunn or Dragic, who's going to have the big production here just because of the higher totals later on the slate. So let's jump to game 2. This is another low total. This is Boston at New York. These teams have already played twice this season. Boston won both of those games, 118-95, and then a closer one in Boston, 104-102. This one has a 7.5 point spread, Boston being the favorite. And why don't you tell us about the home squad, the Knicks? Who do you like over there?
So, yeah, the reason I'm liking this game is, it's maybe not the highest total of the slate, but there are some Knicks that put up some good numbers against the Celtics last time they were out. And those Knicks are priced actually at a pretty decent price here. They're mid-tier price, and they performed very well. So the first guy I'm going to talk about is Marcus Morris. I think he's priced at, a little too cheap at 5,900 since he's been averaging 32 fantasy points a game. And there's the revenge narrative there. This is his old team. And last time out, he managed 29 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals against them, which got him 50 DK points. So he's one of the guys I'm looking at. Another guy I've been kind of on and off of this season is RJ Barrett. He's also priced at that mid-tier price at 5,800. He's been good for, pretty much 30 minutes every game, and he can put up a little bit of everything. So he's another guy I might go to there for if I'm just looking for something in that mid-tier pricing. Another guy I'm looking at for value here is Mitchell Robinson. His minutes have been up over the past 2 games, even though his production hasn't trended up with those. But we know that he has the potential to pop off. And his second best game this season actually came against the Celtics earlier in the season and he netted him 30 fantasy points there. So those are kind of the 3 that I'm really looking at this game. One other guy I always look at is Julius Randle. He's more of a cash game guy. He's just kind of got that safe floor. But actually, of these 4 Knicks, he's the one who did the worst against the Celtics last time out. But he's one guy I kind of always consider. But in this game, I'm probably going to go to those 3 I talked about first.
Okay. Yeah, I think all those guys have a pretty fair price tag. Little bit of caution with Marcus Morris. Last I saw, he's questionable with some sort of a neck restriction. So
I never saw that.
Could slow him down a little bit. The other thing that's interesting is that Knox had a DNP coach's decision last time out. So really interesting with everything that's going on in New York. It's a little bit of a mess over there.
It's been a mess all year.
Yeah, nothing new, right? It just comes in different forms, seemingly every game out. But I kind of I always like Randall's upside. 6.8, of course, he's the highest price guy of the ones you mentioned.
Yep.
I have the most interest in somebody you didn't mention, which is Ntilikina at 4.5. We got some big news in the next game with a big value spot at point guard. So probably don't need to go to Ntilikina, and I wasn't planning to go there much, but
I'm not going. Yeah, I never go there.
But his price tag is most appealing to me of the Knicks, but I probably won't play any Knicks. I have more interest on the Celtics side. And looking at those two previous matchups between these teams, Kemba Walker has really owned the Knicks this year. 32-4 first time out, and then 33-5 the second time out. So he's at 8.1, a little bit higher price than Dinwiddie, but certainly worth considering. And the second game he played against the Knicks this year, Ntilikina was starting. The first one was against Peyton as his primary defender, and the second was Ntilikina. So he's done well in that matchup before. The other guy who I think could be low owned is Tice. He's 4.5K. He only played 6 minutes last game because he had some sort of knee contusion, and he was cleared to return to the game, but he did not come back. So I think he'll be very low owned, and we've seen him, really pay off a price tag like that. He did that in the game against the Clippers. So he's somebody I might look to as well.
Yeah, I like that call. I had Daniel Tice noted down here as well, and as long as he's doesn't have much of a minute restriction coming in on him, I like his price at 4,500 a lot. And then I did have one other guy. I don't know, did you look at Jalen Brown at all on that side?
What is he? 6.5?
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't I wasn't focused on him. I did notice his price tag though. Do you like that one?
Yeah, I do like that just because it's 1,300 less than Tatum, and I mean he's a guy that's eclipsed 40 fantasy points this season 6 times, and he can pop up there. I mean, obviously his floor isn't as good as Tatum's, but at $1,300 less, I like that.
Yeah, it's true. He definitely has the upside. His price has drifted down a little bit from where it was early in the season. He was much more in that mid 7K price range. So definitely a buy low opportunity there. All right, well, let's jump to game 3 here on this first 4-game slate because it's the highest total. It's Memphis at Minnesota. The total is 230. Right now, Minnesota is favored by 9.5. These teams played earlier in November, and Memphis won 137-121. So 258 points were scored in that contest. This one's going to be a little bit different because Ja Morant has been ruled out. We just got that news here on Saturday night. So that obviously opens up a big value opportunity at point guard.
Definitely. And yeah, these are the two fastest paced teams on this slate. Memphis is ranked 6th and Minnesota is ranked 4. So, and like you just said, those numbers were massive last time. So definitely going to be lots of points going up on the boards.
Yeah. So in addition to Ja being out, I'll just go through the rest of the news and then you can tell on the Grizzlies. Kyle Anderson has been ruled out and Brandon Clark is now questionable. So some uncertainty in the front court. Who do you like for the Grizzlies?
So on the Grizzlies side, I like you had mentioned there with all the stuff opening up, Tyus Jones at 3,100. Anytime Ja Morant's ruled out, he's always in play. He can rack up the dimes. And then the other guy I was looking at is Solomon Hill. If Clark is also ruled out along with Anderson, I like him at 3,000. I think he can definitely get you value at that price. The other guy that I'm looking at as an actual starter on the – well, I guess those other guys will be starters too, but the other guy that's always a starter is Jonas Valanciunas. The last 2 games, he's been getting that past that 30-point mark that we've been all waiting for this entire season, and he's been producing great numbers with those. And, I mean, he put up big numbers against teams that are highly rated defensively. So I think it was LAC1 and Utah.
That's right.
Yeah, so, I mean – doesn't mean that he can't go out there and, I mean, it is against Karl-Anthony Towns, but I can't see him, I can see him going out there and putting up big numbers again. So I'm willing to, dabble with him at 6,900.
Yeah, me too. He's in the zone here all of a sudden, as you mentioned, over 30 minutes, and last two times 60 points and 53 fantasy points in those two. So he's going to be in my lineup for sure. And for me, Tyus Jones is a lock and load at 3.1. The last time he got over 24 minutes, he scored 30 DraftKings points. So you're looking at a potential 10x return. So got to have him in the lineup. And there's two guys in the next game named Luka and LeBron who will be a little bit easier to fit since we can go with Tyus Jones here. But continuing on with Memphis, I'm with you on those two guys. I like Solomon Hill as a value play. Clark, it is questionable, so we do need to wait on that. The other guy you could look at, if with Anderson out and Clark out, is Triple J. He's 5.6, and in the last 4 games, he has attempted 7 3-pointers in each of those games. Let me just double check that. Yep. So he had a poor shooting night last time, but the 3 games before that, he shot a lot better from distance, and he had over 30 fantasy points. So his minutes would be rock solid if Clark is out. So I like him as well. And if you need another value play, you probably don't. But Grayson Allen at 3.0, he's getting enough minutes and enough shots where if he just makes some of his 3-pointers, he could have a 20 fantasy point night. We probably don't need him now with Solomon Hill and with Tyus Jones. He was just somebody I was looking at before we got that late news. Yeah. So probably don't go.
I had peeked him a bit too, but with those 2 other guys, I wasn't interested in it at all.
Right. Okay. Now over on the Minnesota side, I'm starting my focus with Cat and Wiggins, of course. Prices are up a little bit, but I noticed that if you take both of them in the last 3 or 4 games, they combine for about 100 fantasy points a game. So, as I mentioned, this is the game I want to stack, and you can do that really easily with Cat, Wiggins, Tyus Jones, Valanciunas, and still have a decent amount of money to spend on your other 4 positions. So that's my focus for the Timberwolves. As for the rest of the roster, we've got news that Layman is out. Napier is questionable. He's missed, I think, 11 games, but he's only 3.3. So we got to keep an eye on that because he's going to cut into Teague's time. And interesting that Teague's been coming off the bench here at 5.6K. He's not as attractive coming off the bench, but he did play 31 minutes last time out, so I wouldn't cross him out of the player pool.
Yeah, him coming off the bench hasn't affected his minute total at all. He's been pretty much hovering around the same mark there.
So how about you? Are you interested in stacking Cat and Wiggins here on this slate?
I was looking at that, but the problem is that, like you said, in the next game there, if Dallas and Los Angeles, there's the 3 big guys there that I was looking at Towns, and I was like, hey, do I want Towns more than I want those other guys? And I wasn't sure, but I mean, like you said, with the points total on this game, maybe I might go to Towns a bit more. But I think I definitely am looking at Luka always. So it just depends if I can fit those guys into my lineup or not with Luka.
Okay. Anybody else from the periphery with the Timberwolves that you like?
Yeah, I was taking a little look there, but the problem is, like, a lot of the guys that I thought, okay, well, if these 2 guys are out, then what's his name here? Keita Bates Diop.
Yep.
He's been playing pretty well, but the thing is, that probably hinges a bit on if Josh Okogie and Trayvon Graham are ruled out or not. And they both have questionable tags, but it's along with them being probable. So that'd be something I'd be monitoring. And I mean, if those 2 are ruled out, then I'd be looking at Keita Bates Diop then.
Right on. Excellent. All right, well, let's go to the big matchup in LA because it's an exciting one. It's the 4th game on the first slate here. It's at 4 o'clock Eastern. Dallas will be in Staples against the Lakers. Lakers currently favored by 6. over under of 222. So as I mentioned, this is the second game I'm looking to stack, and we've got just the incredible matchup of Luka and LeBron. Last time these guys faced off, it went to overtime. The Lakers won that game 119-110, and Luka and LeBron were fantastic. So start us off with the Mavericks. Is there any way you're going to fade Luka here?
No, I'm not fading Luka at all here. I mean, every time it's just, like I said, the kid's almost averaging a triple-double this season. The only game so far that he's had struggle against when he was going against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And I mean, the Lakers defense is a far cry from the Clippers defense. So I'm probably going to be once again putting Luka into a ton of my lineups. The one other guy I'm looking at on the Dallas side of the ball is a guy who just kind of got into the starting role there is Tim Hardaway Jr. He's only priced at 4,900. And since he's been in the new starting role, he's been doing pretty good. I mean, obviously, he also struggled against the Clippers as well. But like I said, I don't think he's going to have as much difficulty against the Lakers as he did against the Clippers.
Yeah, I like both of those guys. Those are my top two targets here. They really go well together in terms of the price because THJ is so much cheaper, but also the fit on the court. I mean, when Luka drives, if he doesn't score at the basket, he loves to kick it out to THJ on the wing, and he's been converting on his shots recently. So those two guys are an excellent pairing. Curry.
I'm just going to say too, I was honestly surprised that they didn't start this way, like that they started with Seth Curry over Tim Hardaway Jr. I didn't really quite understand it. Like, I know that like everybody's like, oh, Seth Curry has potential, yada, but I was just like, we know what Tim Hardaway Jr. can do, and he is a good 3-point shooter. So why not have him out there on the starting line?
Yeah, and he's got a little bit more size. But Curry, I mean, he is an excellent shooter himself. So
yeah,
I mean, it's a good problem to have for the Mavericks to have those two guys because it's an excellent combination to have those guys out around the perimeter with Luka in the paint, wreaking havoc there and able to kick out to them, those knockdown shooters. So I have some interest in Curry at 3.2. His minutes are starting to go back up here, and he's not doing quite as much other than scoring. And again, he's not in the same really realm as Tyus Jones here on this slate. So I had more interest in him before the news came out there. And one other flyer that I was looking at is Boban, my man Boban, 3.0. He's only played in about half the games this year, but in their matchup earlier in the season, he did play 11 minutes, had 4, 7, and 1. So I think he probably, I think Carlisle put him in that day to face off against Howard. So, anytime Boban might play 12 to 16 minutes and he's min price, I like to get him in there because he's just an incredible point per minute producer. So,
he's unreal.
I probably am going to have to put at least get one share of Boban here on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta love the friendly giant when he gets his minutes.
Yes, that's all he needs. Just give him some time. Just give him a few minutes. All right, so over on the Lakers side, LeBron's at 10.6, AD is 10.4. In this matchup last time, LeBron had 39, 12, 16, 4, and 1. Just an incredible game. And I'm willing to go back to him here. He was excellent on Friday night against the Wizards, but both he and Anthony Davis left the game before the end of the third quarter and never came back. So if you just glance at the fantasy totals and you weren't watching or you don't check the play-by-play, just keep that in mind. They didn't play, I think, the last 15 minutes of the game. So they were on pace to smash 60 or 70 fantasy points.
Yeah. As you wouldn't even be unimpressed if you looked at those, though, because Anthony Davis still finished with 53 fantasy points. So, I mean, you'd still look at that and think, oh, yeah, he had a good game last game.
Right.
Without even knowing that he missed the last quarter.
Yeah. So that's why, and Coach mentions it, and I'm big on it as well. It just helps so much to watch the games as much as you can. So That's one of those things that popped out at me. By the way, I should mention that Porzingis.
I didn't even watch that game. I just followed it on like the box score on DraftKings, and I just was seeing it. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, they're this far ahead. And I was looking, and I was like, you know what? They're probably not going to put him back in for the rest of the game. And yeah, I watched and never went back in.
And it's a good topic to mention specifically in this matchup because Dallas does it differently. Luka was in the game till the very end against Phoenix, and so that's important. You get those extra minutes. That could be the tiebreaker between Luka and LeBron. Not that we would expect a blowout here by the Lakers, but just going forward, I noticed that, and in fact, I can talk about the Lakers bench here. Another thing that really stood out to me in the Friday night game is that Caruso came into the game late in the first quarter, got 2 quick fouls, and they pulled him out of the game. He didn't play the rest of the first half, as if he was like this star that there's no way we can let him get his 3rd foul. But then in the second half, when the game was pretty much out of reach, he came into the game with 3 minutes left in the 3rd quarter, and he played the rest of the game. So he played 15 minutes in the second half, and of course was never in foul trouble. But that's the thing is you watch that 4th quarter unfold, and you see LeBron and AD sitting on the bench, and they never come back. I don't think that's going to happen with Dallas this year. I think Luka's going to come back in and get bigger minutes. So I think that's a tiebreaker between guys like this. But as we mentioned earlier, you can stack this game and use Tyus Jones and get them both in there, especially with THJ. And then in terms of any other value plays here, Caldwell Pope is only 4.2. I like him to pair with LeBron. They've got some good chemistry. And then Rondo, he's 5.0, and he's another guy that you need to look at here with a grain of salt if you look at his fantasy total from Friday night, because he didn't play in the second half.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad you hit on Rondo, because I was just going to mention, I think he got that he was on fire in their first quarter, and then I don't know if he saw much playing time after the first quarter even.
Yeah, I think he played into the second quarter some, but I am almost sure he didn't play in the second half at all.
He didn't touch the second half, because I looked at his fantasy point total there. I think it was at what it was, and then it didn't change at all in the second half.
Yeah, so Rondo at 5.0, I like him here because if this game stays close, he's going to play significant minutes in both halves, and he looked really good in the first half when he was out there. So I like Pope and Rondo here. How about you?
Yeah, I like Rondo a lot. I like that call. I'm like you said, whenever he gets the minutes, he can put up big numbers. As I mentioned too, when he said with Luka not getting sat ever, and the only time he got sat this year was when they blew out the Golden State Warriors, but that was by like a ridiculous amount, and he still had a triple double in those 26 minutes in those 3 quarters he played.
That's right. That was when he had 22, 5, and 5 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
So he didn't need the 4th quarter to smash value that night.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll be a good way to finish off the first slate.
I was just gonna say too. Were you on with playing Anthony Davis in this game as well, or are you fading Anthony Davis?
I didn't build a lineup with Luka, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. It's possible. So in other words, I'm gonna pick LeBron over Davis here.
Davis? Okay.
It might be possible with some of the value guys we've mentioned, but I guess I'm just not quite as interested in Anthony Davis here in this matchup as LeBron. Are you more interested in him?
I'm actually interested in Davis this time, just because I know, I'm imagining, I'm not sure if last time they played if he was still dealing with that shoulder issue or not, but over the last few games here, he keeps on having the questionable tag, but he's been ramping it up over the last 4 games. And I think, there's no one in the Mavs front court that can really deal with Davis's size. Porzingis is tall as him, but I mean, weight size, Anthony Davis can push him around in the paint no problem. So I do like Davis in this position, and like as far as like I'm having a hard time to fade any of them. Like I think I might do a couple lines where I have Davis and a couple lines where I do LeBron.
Yeah, I think that's a smart approach, and I'm glad you mentioned it. One of the reasons why I like LeBron a little bit more is just thinking about this showdown with Luka, and he went berserk in that first time they played this year, and I have a feeling he might do it again, just to maybe try to one up Luka. And of course, LeBron is the one who has the ball in his hands, and so he can make that final decision of whether he wants to be a little bit more passive and set up AD and really try to allow him to have a strong game, or if he kind of takes the bull by the horns and is a little bit more aggressive driving to the hole. So I'm sort of predicting the latter, that LeBron will kind of try to go toe to toe with Luka and maybe outdo him with another big triple double.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you for thinking that, because I definitely agree that he is probably out there trying to one up Luka. I still like Davis in the position that he is in.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see Porzingis slowing him down too much. So wouldn't surprise me at all if he has another excellent game. So all right, well let's get to the second slate here. This is the mid to late afternoon wave of games. 2 games at 5 o'clock, 2 games at 6 o'clock. So we'll go through this second 4-game slate here. And, in general, these games aren't as appealing to me. You don't have any high total games. You don't have a matchup like Memphis and Minnesota, as you mentioned, 2 teams that are top 6 in pace. You've got totals that range from 206 to 228. So the second game we talk about has a decent total, but let's start out with the Spurs and Pistons. And because most of this season I have been punting on the Spurs and allowing you and Apotria and everybody else to talk about them, I'll just jump ahead and start talking about the Spurs, because there's actually some exciting news.
I'm just going to say it, and the whole reason you want it tonight is because there's actually some good news on it.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sure Mike is going to feel great when he hears that.
That's just a little asterisk, a little footnote. We don't really need to focus on that. Let's just focus on the fact that I'm going to take the Spurs. Patria, you heard it here first. I'm doing it. And the reason I'm going to is because LaMarcus Aldridge is out. He has played all 20 games this year. This is the first game he's missed this year. So finally, some sort of clarity. I'm going to play DeRozan. He's only 7.3. I like him a lot in this matchup. The Pistons are 19th defensively, and this is the spread is Pistons -4 right now. So hopefully it will stay close. And this game does have some potential for a high point total because, as I mentioned, Pistons aren't very good in defense. Spurs are 25th in defense. They did look a lot better against the Clippers, but in any event, I like DeRozan. I like Rudy Gay to soak up some of that usage with LaMarcus Aldridge out, and Gay is only 4.9. He didn't have a great outing last time in terms of scoring, but he did play 31 minutes. So I like him here. And then the other Spur I'm interested in is Derek White. 4.6. Let's follow the news on him, make sure he's starting, and hopefully we can count on 26 to 28 minutes or more. And we should have that news because it's the first game of the slate. It's the 5 Eastern tip-off in Detroit. So that's what I'm looking at on the Spurs side. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I like your call on Rudy Gay there. He did. Yeah, the reason he got 31 minutes last time is because he got moved into the starting lineup over Jakob Poeltl. The thing is, too, I still actually like Jakob Poeltl in this game at 4,300 just because with Aldridge being out, there's going to be more minutes to go around. And then, as you said, the 4 guys you talked about, or the 3 guys you talked about, I like all of those calls.
Okay. Yeah, Poeltl is worth considering. There's a lot of guys in this slate, actually, in that sort of low 4,000 range, a lot of these big guys. So, that could be a difference maker in terms of cashing is picking the right one. So Pearl's been doing well lately. He's been getting a bunch of blocks, and certainly wouldn't surprise me if he had more minutes. with Aldridge out. Now over on the Pistons side, they are the home team here. They just lost at home 110-107 to Charlotte. They're 6-13, disappointing record so far. Do you like anybody for the Pistons?
Yeah, in this slate, there's not a ton of big stars or anything. And so the one guy who I was looking at on this side was Andre Drummond. I mean, everybody's worried about Blake Griffin coming back and eating into his usage. I mean, he has a bit, but not to the extent that I think people were thinking was going to happen. And I mean, I've been pretty unimpressed with what Blake Griffin's been doing so far, and I don't understand why his price tag went up this game. Because, I think this is the highest it's been all season almost. And I don't get where that's coming from, because I think the last game out, he only had 17 fantasy points. And I mean, going back to Drummond, he's averaging 17 points, 17 boards, so that's a massive double-double. And since no LaMarcus Aldridge out there, I feel like he can go in there and he can do what he wants in the paint.
Yeah, that's interesting, the front court there, because as you mentioned, there aren't any players on this entire slate here in the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock games over 10,000. Drummond is the highest at 9,400. He should have an easier time with San Antonio's front court. And with Blake, I think you meant 17. He had 17 real life points last game out, but still only 28 fantasy points. And he was at 7.5. So you're right. A little bit surprising that he's back up to 8K. And
sorry,
is that our Canadian mascot?
Yeah, that is. Yep, that's Donut.
Donut.
Yeah, just warning us that there's people outside the door right now.
All right, I love that name. But by the way, I don't know if I got to mention that Porzingis. Did you notice that Porzingis against Phoenix did not make a field goal? He had 2 points with an offer. He had a donut in the field goal department. So
really, no, I didn't notice that. I mean, I don't think it was as big of a deal as Embiid's game was.
Yeah, right. But yeah, a little bit of a theme here in these last few days, the donut for those guys. But anyway, back to the Pistons. In general, I'm not on this slate. I'm not going to have much exposure to either of those guys. I have a little bit of interest in Kennard. He's 5.9. I kind of like him on this slate as a guy that you can fit in to fill out your lineup. And Derrick Rose, worth considering at 5.4, but I probably won't go there much.
Yeah, no, I wasn't looking too much at anybody else on the Detroit side, just because, they've just been a little underwhelming this year so far.
Yes, they have. And in that 5K range, there's somebody I like in the next game a lot more. So let's get to that one. It is the highest total on this 4-game slate. The Thunder are traveling to New Orleans to play the Pelicans. These teams just played on Friday night. Oklahoma City won that one 109-104. So now they go with the home and home over in New Orleans. And the Pelicans are favored by this one by 2, total of 228.5. Lots of news here on the Pelicans side. Kenrich Williams is doubtful. Lonzo Ball is questionable, so we might get him back in the lineup. Derek Favors is questionable with a personal issue, so he could come back and line up and really mix things up and make this a different matchup than we saw on Friday night. So with all of those moving parts, who do you like on the Pelican side?
So on the Pelican side, I'm looking at Josh Hart if Ball and Kenrich Williams are both ruled out here. As Mike would say, I think there's a lot of juice left on that bone at 4,800. I mean, he has struggled since coming back from his knee injury, but I mean, before that injury happened, he was, putting up some pretty nice games there, and I'm hoping this is a game where he can find his stride. The one other guy that I'm looking at that I like a lot has been JJ Redick at 5,300. I mean, he's been a very consistent contributor since moving into the starting lineup, and he's just been getting pretty big minutes there. I think he's been getting around 35 minutes a game, and he's been doing well with those. Besides that, I mean, I was kind of looking at the two big guys here, Giroux and Ingram, and I was kind of waffling between the two of them. just because, I mean, if they're the same price, I'd probably just go to Brandon Ingram, no problem. But with Drew being 1,100 less there, I mean, he can put up just as many fantasy points as Ingram can on a given night. It's just that he's been doing it at a little bit less consistent rate. But I think, I don't know. I'm thinking I might be going to Drew here on that one. I think you have a different take on that, though, so I'll let you fly on that.
I do. I just have a feeling that Lonzo will be back. I just feel like it's going to be a mess. Everybody's going to come back, and then the only guy I'm going to want to play is Ingram, because I just feel like if Lonzo's back in the mix and, Hart's back in, and you've got Redick, you've got all these guys splitting up the minutes and the usage on the wing. Ingram is that one go-to guy on offense who is going to take more shots than Drew Holiday on a nightly basis. So I'm willing to pay up for Ingram here. I like him as the most attractive, high-priced option on this 4-game slate. He did well against the Thunder. I don't think they match up very well against him defensively. So he's the guy I'm most interested there. I'm not going to play Lonzo or Hart if Lonzo's back. And I know you were talking about if Lonzo is out.
All news dependent for a lot of those. Yes. Guards.
Yeah. So I think we're aligned there. I just have a feeling he'll come back because why make it easy on us? So, and same thing with the big guys. I mean, if Favors comes back, then I probably don't want any of those guys. But without Favors, Hayes did fairly well in this matchup. He's 4.4. Okafor played well also at 4.6. So I'm gonna consider both of them. But there's a little bit more clarity for the Thunder for me on that side of the ball. I'm interested really in just two guys. Adams at 5.8. He's getting stronger, looking more athletic, more spry. Played well against this team on Friday night with Jackson Hayes in the starting lineup. So that's who Adams was playing against primarily. And then Schroeder off the bench. I talked about it recently. His usage compared to the wings who start is much stronger, much higher. And a good example of it was in this game on Friday night where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chris Paul combined to take 22 shots, and they played 62 minutes, whereas Schroeder only played 32 minutes, and he took more shots than them. He took 24 shots, and looked excellent, 25, 2, and 7. So I like him here. He's only 5.7.
He outplayed both of them.
Yeah, with all of that, with all those numbers and his usage, I don't understand why he's only 5.7. And, the other thing with the eye test in that game for me is, we've talked about how Shai's price has been going down and is more and more attractive at 6.6. But he was just sort of just out there on the wing, not really that heavily involved in the offense. Mm-hmm. And I don't like the split usage between Chris Paul and Shai. So that's why I'm all about Schroeder.
Yeah, I say Shai's points and his rebounds have been trending down since the start of the season. They've been dropping. But I'm thinking I think the boards is also to do with, like you said, I was saying too, that Steven Adams has just been looking more like his old self there, even though, his minutes isn't back up to a full allotment there. He's just looking more healthy.
So what do you think about Schroeder and Adams?
I like those calls for sure because, I didn't have much interest. The only guy who I had written down was Steven Adams. And the only note I had maybe is that if Derek Favors comes back, I think he might give Adams a bit more difficulty than what Jackson Hayes or Jahlil Okafor had given him.
Yeah, you would think so. Favors certainly the vast increase in experience. So
even I think he's a little bigger, isn't he, too, just mass-wise?
Yeah, mass-wise compared to Hayes. Hayes definitely needs to put on some weight. So that is something to consider. I'd be a little bit less enthusiastic about Adams. And of course, you've got Noel, too. and you can get the price savings there to get down to 4.5. He's been playing well and getting almost 24 minutes, so he's worth considering also.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the third game here on the evening slate, and it is a matchup of two teams that are struggling. Also, that's sort of the theme of this slate, by the way. Until we get to the last game. So this is Golden State, course 4-16, traveling to Orlando against the 7-11 Magic. And we have a low total here. This is just not very attractive at 206.5. Magic are favored by 9. Do you like anybody here for the Magic? They are facing the Warriors and their 29th ranked defense.
Yep. On the Orlando side, I do have one guy that I've been using the last few games, and it always seems to be a low ownerage rate. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I mean, it's not like his price is extremely high or anything, and he's been producing fairly consistently over the last trying to think how many games it was since pretty much the start of November here. But yeah, that's Evan Fournier, and he's been putting up anywhere between, I think, let's have a look here. I'm putting up pretty much anywhere between 30 to 40 fantasy points. And with Vooch out still, there's still a lot of usage to go around. And at 6,400, I like his price. Besides him, I mean, if Aaron Gordon had been back for a few more games, I'd be interested in him at 6,000. But since he's only been back for one game, I'm still kind of a little bit concerned about his ankle issue he had. But yeah, besides that, Jonathan Isaacs has been a little. I mean, he's had a couple good games, but then they've been followed by a few just mediocre games, and I'm not too interested in him at the 7,000 mark there. What about you? Anybody on the Magic that you've been looking at?
Yeah, Fournier is the one guy I also have circled. So he's the guy I'm definitely going to have in probably the majority of my lineups here. Took down a couple stats on him. He's taken at least 15 shots in 4 of the last 5 games, and in the other one, he got to the line and made 12 of 14 free throws. So you're right. Without Vucevic in recent games here, he's been aggressive and certainly worth it at that price tag. And the other guys are just, tournament plays for me. Isaac, certainly at 7.0, he could be a monster here against this terrible Golden State defense. So I do like him. I also like Gordon at 6.0. Maybe this is where we jump ahead of the curve here. And last time out, he only shot 2 of 11. So maybe, so his form wasn't great, but he's getting the minutes. He's back in the lineup, and we know that he can pay off 6.0 pretty easily. So
yes, he can.
Yeah. So that's the decision we have to make here: is do we try and jump the gun here, or do we wait and see a real strong game out of him? Of course, if you get that, then we're not going to get 6.0 next time around. So something to think about.
I'd say comfortable GPP play, not so comfortable cash game play.
Yes, I'm with you there. And then Birch at 4.7. He's in that group that I was referencing here of all these bigs in the 4K range. Starting way back with Pirtle and Hayes, Okafor. And so if you make a few lineups, you may want to get him into one because I think that's a fair price for him, getting more than 24 minutes. Over on the Golden State side, they are a squad on this slate where, again, they have some attractive prices in the 5K range. Draymond Green is only 5.5, and maybe he fits into that category for you as well in terms of perfectly fine for a tournament, but maybe not where you want to go in the cash game because he only played 19 minutes last time out. So if he plays a normal allotment of minutes, I love Draymond here at 5.5, and Pascal's 5.4. A little bit of a down game last time. Maybe we get a bounce back here. I like him. And Bowman is 5.3. We've seen his upside recently, so I like that price tag as well. And by the way, on Bowman, I read a really good article on him in The Athletic these last couple days about his draft process and how he impressed the Warriors with his one-on-one interview. So that's worth a read if you're curious about his background. But he's really taken advantage of his minutes here, and I like him. So for me, those are the three guys I like the most on Golden State. But there may be others that you like. I know Burks is in that 5K range as well. Who do you like for the Golden State?
Yeah, like I was telling you earlier on this team, it's like you're pretty much just if you're playing a matched GPP lineups, you're pretty much just taking one, plugging them in, next line, another one. You're just kind of picking and choosing for each lineup because on any given nights, one can hit or one can, throw up a dud. But like you said, I love Draymond Green too at 5,500 if he gets a full allotment of minutes, because if he gets a full allotment of minutes, we know that he can put up a triple-double. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they can all go off and hit value, but then they can all perform terribly and give you nothing.
Yeah, and what they're coming off of is just a dud of a game in Miami on Friday night. So they've spent the weekend in Florida. Let's see how they rebound after that dud on Friday night where they lost by 17. Nobody got huge minutes. And so Draymond for me is a guy who, he's not the type that's just okay with that. He's going to come back with a vengeance. So I certainly like him at 5.5. And we have one more game on this 4-game slate in the evening, and it's a battle of strong defenses. It's going to be up in Canada, quite a ways from Myles, because Myles is on the west side. It'll be in Toronto. It is Utah and their 5th-ranked defense traveling to face the 1st-ranked Raptors defense. And I'm going to let you start with the Jazz.
Yeah, on the Jazz side, I like Mike Conley at 5,800. I know he's been underperforming, the last few games here, but, I think that might give him at a low ownage rate. And, we all know he's capable of putting up those 40-point fantasy games. So he's one of the guys I'm looking at. I like him at the price range. He'll be going into a couple of my lineups. The one other guy I have as a GPP flyer here, priced at 4,100, is Joe Ingles. Because, he has been vastly, underperforming this entire year. He's been very volatile. But, at 4,100, if he goes out and puts up one of his 30 fantasy point games, you've definitely hit value there. And then the one other guy I've been kind of looking at here was Donovan Mitchell. Because, he's one of those guys who can go and give you a great night. But, like you said, this is a very defensive-oriented game here for two of these teams. But like we had mentioned earlier, there's not a ton of big stars on this slate. So he's one of those guys who can give you, the big star numbers at, I think he's at 7,900, is he?
Mitchell?
Yeah, where is he? Or 8,200.
8.2, yeah.
Yes. So at that price, he's one of the guys I'd look at.
Okay. Man, Apotri is going to love you for your love on Conley there. I'm going to fade Conley just because I like Schroeder at 5.7. So that's the decision I'm going to make on this slate. And the guy I'm most interested in with Utah is actually Bojan Bogdanovic. He's at 6.8, and 3 of the last 4 games he's had over 40 fantasy points. And I'm not quite sure why he doesn't get priced up more. But
I was looking at Bojan as well, but yeah, he's just. I think the reason he doesn't get priced up is because I think everybody knows that yes, he can put up those big numbers, but then he can also come back down to earth and not have that great of a game. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, he is. But just love that stroke, and on this short slate. He's the one that jumps out to me the most. And, on Ingles, I got to say, the 4.1 is just crazy low, and he did play terribly last time out. It's amazing.
They're pretty much just daring you to put him in the lineup, though.
They are. I mean, 26 minutes last time out. He only had 7.25 fantasy points. It's just crazy what the problem he's having this season. But the 2 games before that, he was over 25 fantasy points. Exactly. So at 4.1, that's a 6x return right there. So I certainly understand why you're interested in him. Royce O'Neal, by the same token, is 4.2. So he's worth considering as well as a value play. Over on Toronto's side, I don't have too much money left to spend here most of my lineups because I've gone with Ingram and DeRozan. So Siakam at 8.7, probably going to be the odd man out for me in a lot of these lineups.
I didn't really have a ton of interest in Siakam just because you've got the Stifle Tower on the other side there as well, eating up a lot of boards and, just getting in the way.
Yeah, really getting in the way of everything. But 8.7, I probably won't have too much Siakam.
On that note, I'd rather go Gobert over Siakam, I think, with that price range difference. But I'm not that, I didn't really, he wasn't a guy that was jumping out at me or anything, but I would rather go with Gobert over Siakam.
Yeah, and of course, Gobert has to deal with Gasol, and Gasol is the one who, in large part, got that donut for Embiid. So that's the thing with these 2 top 5 defenses. It's just tough matchups all over the court. So where do you find any headway? The other news here for Toronto is that Lowry is doubtful, so he's going to be back soon. If he comes back, then we can expect Powell's usage to reduce drastically. So I'm probably not going to chase the points with Powell at 5.3. He was excellent last time out, but he shot the lights out and didn't do much else besides the scoring. I think, if Lowry does come back, Powell goes to the bench. OG Anunoby at 4.9. That's a nice price tag. I like him. And Fred VanVleet, of course, 7.4, 7 steals last time out. He's just been excellent. So
I was going to say I like Freddie. And like you were saying on that note too, is with Lowry coming back in, that could eat into some of Fleet's usage and stuff. So this might be one of the last games we get to ride that train.
Yeah, and final piece of news there: Ibaka questionable, so keep an eye on that. If he comes back, Boucher is less and less attractive. But all right, so there's our second 4-game slate, and we've got one more. The late night hammer, Miles, on Sunday. It's all by itself. It's a showdown slate at 10:30 Eastern. So you can take your winnings from earlier in the day and reinvest in this matchup at the Staples Center. It's the Wizards and their 30th ranked defense playing the Clippers. 11s are wild for the Clippers. They are 11th in pace, 11th in offensive efficiency, and they have the 11th best defense. So that's an easy one to remember.
I like these lucky numbers you've been doing for this.
Yeah, 7s and 11s actually.
Yep.
By the way, those are the lucky numbers for craps. And Micah Patry, as we speak, is playing roulette right now, and he's investing coach's money on 30 and 33. So hopefully 3s are wild for Mike tonight, because we are recording this on Saturday night, and then 7s and 11s are wild for us tomorrow with Dinwiddie and the Clippers. So on the Clippers side, Miles, in this showdown slate, what do you think about the pricing options there?
Yeah, I took a look at this, and I think you and me are kind of on different sides here. You're looking at more Bradley Beal, but I'm worried about him just going against this defense. And I'm much more comfortable playing Kawhi Leonard than I am many of the other big stars here over Beal and George, just because he's been so consistent throughout the year when he's been playing. That's another thing I guess we better watch to make sure that no tags come up on him saying that he's questionable or being ruled out. But yeah, if he's not being ruled out, I'm probably going to be stacking Kawhi and George together. And in the lineup I think I built here, I had Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Thomas Bryant, and then I had Patrick Beverley in the captain spot. And I had Ish Smith, I think, as my last utility spot, I believe.
Okay.
That's kind of how I went about building that. That's the one thing, too, is like with the big stars there, I'm just not sure any of them are going to be worth throwing in the captain spot or not. Because for me, I want them hitting, around that 60 mark, I think, if I'm throwing them that captain spot.
Well, in a perfect world, we'd want all our captains to score 60, wouldn't we? That would be
well,
ideal.
I guess that's not even really 60. It's 60 times 1.5, I guess. So what is
right? Then you get 90.
Yeah. So exactly. So that's what you're hoping for, but I just don't know if any of those guys are going to hit it right now or not. So that's why, you'd kind of taught me into that idea of Patrick Beverley because he is one of those guys that's lower priced and can definitely pop off for a decent amount of points.
Yeah, I had some success earlier in the season with Beverly as the captain, and he does have some volatility. So he can certainly ruin your lineup as a captain, but he can also shoot you up to the top of the leaderboard. So he's worth considering if we want to get 2 out of the 3 of Kawhi, Paul George, Beal. And so that's the question here. What do we do with Kawhi and Paul George? So you're going to play them both, which I think is a fine approach. I am planning to fade them both, actually. As you mentioned, Kawhi's been more consistent lately. We can rely on him getting the 40 fantasy points. Paul George has not been consistent, has been underperforming here, and their price tags are 10.8 and 10.2 respectively. So I like Beal here. If I'm going to make 5 lineups here, I think I'm going to fade those guys in 3 of them. Maybe I'll play Kawhi twice out of my 5 lineups, Paul George once, but I'm gonna fade them and load up on these mid-priced Clippers. Lou Williams and Harrell. Love stacking those guys, and they're much better price tags, and we get much more balanced lineup if we go with that route. And so I'll go with Lou Williams, I'll go Harrell, and then I'm going to pair Beal and Bryant together again. And I watched them on Friday night, and I had them in a couple lineups, and it was so aggravating because they were playing a lot of 2-man ball together, and it was just one thing after another. Bryant would feed it to Beal for 3 and go in and out. Beal fed it to Bryant for like a dunk, and it was, he got fouled and the ball just rimmed out, and it was just one thing after another where instead of getting like a 5-point fantasy play where you get the assist and the 3, you get like a missed shot, or then instead of an and 1 with the assist, you get a missed shot and you make 1 free throw. And so I'm just hoping these guys bounce back.
And things just are starting to go more fall their way.
Yeah.
The shots are going in instead of rimming out.
Yeah, and I like that the usage in general is a little bit more concentrated for those guys than it will be for Kawhi, Paul George, all of them if they all play. So we'll monitor the news there. The other news is that Landry Shamet is questionable, so he might come out of nowhere, and he's only 1,000. That's his price tag. So I always like to look at the cheap guys here and who I might play to get as many stars in as we can here on the Showdown slate. So I like him at 1,000 if he's going to play. The other guy you could look at is Isaac Bonga. He's only 1,000. He got some run here lately with CJ Miles out. But you and I have also talked a little bit here about McRae. We both like him.
Yep.
He's up to 5.6 on this slate. The prices are different in a Showdown. 4 out of the last 5 games, he's scored between 23 and 33 fantasy points. So he's almost like a cash game play in your Showdown lineup, which is fine. I mean, it's certainly good to have guys like that are sort of in the middle tier of pricing, and you can kind of count on them giving you a solid output. And he's been getting big minutes.
Yes, he has been. Yep. Him and Ish Smith are 2 on that side that I would kind of like to look at too.
Yeah, Ish Smith only 4.4. Rui is 5.2. A lot of options in this game. It's an exciting showdown slate, and so many ways you can go about it. Like you mentioned, if you want to stack Kawhi and Paul George, I might fade them, and then there's always the key question here of who do we select as our captain?
Yeah, that's the big one, because it's just there's a lot of different ways. Like, even though it's just two teams, it's amazing how many different lineups you can throw in there, right?
Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, it's going to be a fun Sunday. We've got 9 games. We hope everyone enjoyed the show. Myles, any final thoughts here on these games as we head into this big Sunday?
Not a time, but I was just wondering. I mean, how many other Sundays are going to be this big throughout the year?
Seriously.
I don't know if there will be many like this.
I mean, it's really only the two of us that could handle such a slate on a Sunday. We know Coach and Apotria just have no energy left from the week. They are spent.
They did massive slates by themselves there. They did a 14 and a 13 by themselves, didn't they?
Yeah, well, that's the thing you mentioned. I mean, you talk about a player with volatility. The slates this week have had major volatility. It's either 0 to 2 or like 11 to 14.
Yep, it's been pretty crazy. But I guess that's what happens when you have the big holiday in the middle of the week, right?
That's exactly what happens. So, all right. Well, we thank you all for joining us on this 9-game slate. As we mentioned, hopefully we're going to light up the scoreboard with our teams, and let us know if you hit a big one. Send us the details on Twitter. Send them to Myles at MYLES6565. You can find me at Language Olympic, and share that news with the rest of the team also. Coach is JOESARVADI. Mike is MIKEAPOTRIA. And that is the crew. So without further ado, thank you for joining us on this Sunday. Make sure to join us throughout the week on Hoopball NBA DFS Today.
Have a good night, guys, and good luck tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.